My parents told me my depression was just laziness, so I cut them off for a year. When I got my PhD, they asked if they could attend the ceremony. I said, only if you clap when they list what I overcame. They stayed home. I'm Danny, 30, female, and I still flinch when I hear the word lazy. It's like a trigger buried so deep in my bones I can't scrub it out no matter how far I run or how much I achieve. Because for the longest time, that was my label, stamped on me like a damn name tag by the two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. My parents, Jack and Linda, early 60s, Midwestern, church, every Sunday, respect your elders, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, kind of people. My dad did HVAC for 35 years. Mom was a dental hygienist until her back gave out. They worked hard, lived hard, and had exactly zero patience for anything they couldn't see or fix with their own two hands. I was their firstborn, quiet, bookish, sensitive in all the wrong ways. My brother Ryan, 2 years younger, was their golden boy. Played varsity everything, built like dad, thought like mom. He could crash a car into a mailbox and they'd say it built character. I got a C in math once and my mom grounded me for a month, said I was wasting potential. That word, potential, was always hanging over my head like a ceiling fan with a loose screw. One bad spin, and I'd be the failure they always predicted. I started struggling with depression in high school. Back then, I didn't even have the language for it. I just knew I felt wrong, heavy, like waking up every day was dragging a sandbag through molasses. I'd stare at the ceiling for hours, miss assignments, forget meals, fake being sick to avoid going outside. And every time I tried to explain it, really tried, my mom would roll her eyes and say, "We all get tired, Danielle." My dad called it teenage laziness and told me to do some yard work to snap out of it. I remember one night so vividly it still wakes me up sometimes. Junior year, I'd been crying for hours. This silent, guttural kind of cry you do when you're trying not to make noise. I finally cracked and told my mom I thought I needed to see someone, maybe a therapist. Her response? "We don't air our dirty laundry with strangers." Then she slapped the remote into my hand and told me to find something funny to watch. So I didn't bring it up again. Not when I dropped out of volleyball. Not when I started losing weight from skipping lunch every day. Not when I started writing little goodbye letters in the Notes app on my phone. They never saw any of it. Or maybe they did and chose to look away. College was supposed to be my escape. But even then, they tried to micromanage from 400 miles away. Are you using your time wisely? You know we're not made of money. What are you even going to do with that psych degree? I developed panic attacks in sophomore year and had to switch to part-time. My mom called it a lazy girl excuse. My dad said, "Don't come crawling back here when it doesn't work out." So I didn't. Instead, I clawed my way forward. I worked 3 jobs. Coffee shop in the morning, TA gig in the afternoons, bar back at a dive on Friday nights. I couch surfed when I couldn't afford rent. Learned how to stretch a $20 grocery budget like it was an Olympic sport. I'd sleep in library cubicles between shifts. I wrote papers during smoke breaks. Even though I didn't smoke, just needed the 10 minutes outside, pretending I had lungs that worked like everyone else's. And the whole time, I never told my parents how bad it got. Not when I was down to one pair of jeans and eating peanut butter straight from the jar. Not when I had to decide between paying for heat or paying for textbooks, because I already knew what they'd say. Well, you chose this. You could have come home and gotten a real job. Home wasn't home. It was a courtroom where I was always guilty of not being enough. There were days I was so low I couldn't feel my body. Just this cold fog that made everything muffled and wrong. And then there were the days I was incandescent with rage. At them, at the world, at myself, forever believing they might change. Still, somehow, I made it. Barely. By senior year, I was in therapy, finally, through the campus health center. My therapist, Anna, was the first person who looked at me and didn't flinch when I said, "I don't know if I want to be here next year." She just nodded, handed me a tissue, and said, "Okay, let's start with that." That was the year I got diagnosed. Major depressive disorder, with generalized anxiety and a spicy little side dish of PTSD. That label felt like a weird sort of relief. Like I wasn't just broken. I was explainable. I graduated, miraculously, and got accepted into a fully funded PhD program in clinical psychology. My professors wrote me glowing recs. One of them called me resilient beyond reason. I cried reading it in the bathroom stall. That same week my dad texted me, "So you're going to be in school forever? Guess you're allergic to real work." I didn't respond. That was the last time I spoke to them for a full year. I didn't block their numbers. I just stopped picking up. I let the calls go to voicemail. Let their birthday cards pile up unopened. I didn't go home for the holidays. When my aunt messaged me on Facebook saying my mom was worried, I replied with, "She can worry harder." During that year, I built my own scaffolding. I went to therapy twice a week, made friends who didn't flinch when I said dark, honest things, fell in love with a woman named Ray, who held my face in her hands the first time I had a panic attack and whispered, "You're not broken, baby. You're just tired." And I got stronger. I published my first paper, started teaching classes, presented at a national conference. I was doing what I loved, and doing it well. And then, out of nowhere, a text from my mom popped up. "We heard about your graduation. Can we come? We're proud of you." Proud of me. I stared at the screen for a long, long time, and then I started drafting my reply. I didn't respond right away. I sat with it for 2 days, just letting it rot in my phone like old fruit. Proud of me. Where was that pride when I was curled up on the floor of my dorm room at 3 a.m., too anxious to breathe, too numb to move? Where was it when I called asking for help and they told me to go for a jog and think positive? They didn't see my journey. They didn't help build any part of this foundation. They just showed up for the ribbon cutting. And yet, part of me wanted to say yes. Not for them. For me. Some buried child inside me still craved the sight of her parents in the crowd, clapping, beaming, like maybe if they saw all I'd done, they'd finally understand what they missed. Maybe they'd finally believe I wasn't just lazy. But I knew better. They didn't want to understand. They wanted credit. So I texted them back. Not cruel, not kind, just honest. "You can come, but I want full honesty in that auditorium. When they list my struggles in the program bio, when they say, diagnosed with MDD, overcame severe trauma, first-gen PhD, I want to hear you clap the loudest. I want to hear you celebrate the things you told me weren't real. If that's too much, stay home." They didn't reply that day, or the next. I figured that was it. That they'd let silence do what they've always done. Bury the issue, pretend the pain never happened. But then, on the morning of the ceremony, my phone buzzed. "We love you, but we're not comfortable being part of a public spectacle. That's not how we show support." I laughed out loud. A sharp, bitter sound that didn't quite feel like mine. A public spectacle. As if my whole damn life hadn't been one long performance for their approval. As if I hadn't been dancing and tapping for scraps of affection since I was old enough to tie my shoes. I didn't text back. I didn't need to. Ray helped me zip up my gown. She fixed the bobby pins in my hair while whispering, "You're about to walk into a room full of people who actually see you, who know what this means." The program had a special section for my bio. I hadn't even asked for it. My advisor submitted it behind my back. A surprise. It read, "Danielle Danny Reeves overcame severe depression, generational trauma, and systemic barriers to complete her PhD in clinical psychology. A fierce advocate for mental health equity, she represents resilience, grit, and the power of healing." When they read that out loud, my full name, my real story, I heard it echo through the auditorium like thunder, and when the clapping came, it was overwhelming. My friends, my professors, Ray, people who knew what it took, but not them. There was an empty pair of seats in the third row, right where I told the coordinator to leave room for my parents, if they show. They didn't. I didn't cry that day, not at the ceremony, not when I tossed my cap, not even when Ray squeezed my hand so tight during the standing ovation that I thought my fingers would bruise. I smiled. I shook hands. I posed for photos next to the empty chairs. But that night, when we got back to our apartment and I peeled off the gown and saw the deep, tired lines under my eyes in the mirror, I shattered. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, like grief soaked in molasses. I slid down to the bathroom floor and just sat there, shoulders shaking, forehead pressed to my knees. Not because they didn't come. I'd expected that. But because it still hurt anyway, after everything. After the degrees and the therapy and the space and the boundaries, that wound was still there, raw as ever. Like some part of me was still that 16-year-old girl crying into her pillow, praying to be seen. Ray found me like that. Didn't say anything. Just wrapped herself around me and rocked me slow like I was a child. She whispered, "They don't deserve this version of you." And for the first time in my life, I believed that. Still, the universe wasn't done poking the bear. 3 days later, I got tagged in a Facebook post. It was from my cousin Melanie, sweet girl, no filter. She posted a photo of me in my graduation robe with the caption, "My badass cousin just got her PhD. She fought like hell to get here and I'm so freaking proud. Y'all better recognize." Harmless. Beautiful even. Until I saw the comment thread. My mother had commented, "She didn't fight. She isolated herself. We offered to help. She refused. But we're glad she finally got serious." Finally got serious. Ray had to pry the phone out of my hand. I didn't say anything for an hour. Just paced the kitchen, heart pounding. That phrase played on a loop in my skull like some cursed ringtone from hell. I finally got serious? After years of being called lazy, delusional, overly sensitive, after dragging myself out of suicidal ideation with zero family support, now they wanted to reframe it as me getting serious? That wasn't pride. That was PR. They wanted to launder my pain into something respectable. Rewrite the narrative to make themselves look like concerned parents with a quirky daughter who finally found her path. And that's when something in me snapped. I wasn't going to let them do it. I wasn't going to let them rewrite my story. So I crafted a post. A real one. Raw, honest, no filter, no grace. I typed, "For those congratulating my parents on my graduation, please know they weren't there. Not for the ceremony, not for the journey. They called my depression laziness for over a decade. When I asked for help, they told me to go outside. When I set boundaries, they called me selfish. So no, I didn't finally get serious. I finally got free. I hit post and went to bed shaking. I woke up to chaos. Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments. Messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some telling me I was brave. Others saying, "This sounds exactly like my mom." One message from my high school English teacher that just said, "I knew you were carrying something big. I'm glad you survived." And then, texts from my parents. My dad's was simple. "You're ungrateful." My mom's was a 5-paragraph guilt bomb, ending with, "After everything we've done for you, how dare you humiliate us publicly?" That was the moment I decided this wasn't over. Update 1. Okay, South. I did not expect that post to explode the way it did. Honestly, I thought maybe 30 people would see it. A few cousins, some college friends, maybe my therapist. Hi, Anna. If you're reading this, you were right about writing being cathartic. I didn't expect thousands of people to comment, share, DM me, pour out stories of their own messed up families and toxic parents, and the years they lost trying to earn love they'd already earned. The solidarity was overwhelming, beautiful, humbling. I cried reading your stories, like ugly cried. Snot, hiccups, the whole deal. But it also stirred the hornet's nest. My parents. Oh God. Let's just say the ungrateful text was the appetizer. What followed was a full-blown campaign. First, it was my dad calling Ray's job, her job, to ask if they're comfortable employing someone involved in public defamation. Thankfully, Ray's boss is a 5 feet 1 inch lesbian named Marcia, who responded by printing out my post, taping it to her door, and writing, "Family isn't an excuse for abuse," in Sharpie underneath it. Then came the emails. Pages and pages of faux concerned messaging. "We just want to understand what we did wrong. We're devastated you would air private matters to strangers. Is this really how you want to remember us when we're gone?" That last one? It came with a photo attachment. A picture of me at age 6, holding a teddy bear in our old backyard. Caption, "You used to love us. What happened to that little girl?" I almost puked, because that little girl begged them to see her, and they shut her down again and again. That little girl disappeared the first time her mom said, "You're being dramatic," instead of, "I'm here." So I ignored it, all of it, until my mom made a Facebook post of her own. Yup, she wrote this long, weepy thing about losing her daughter to mental illness, and how sometimes the people we love the most push us away. She framed herself as this poor mother trying her best, even tagged my high school friends, said I was influenced by people who don't understand our family's values. It was passive-aggressive PR warfare. But you know what? I didn't respond. Not directly. Instead, I screenshotted her post, added my own caption. Funny how people who dismissed my pain for years now weaponize it for sympathy. This isn't about mental illness stealing your daughter. This is about you refusing to believe I was ever in pain to begin with. The support came flooding in again. Old classmates, even some of my mom's friends DM'd me saying, "I always knew something felt off about the way they talked about you." That night, Ray and I opened a bottle of wine and lit a candle. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "What do you want to do next?" And I knew. Revenge isn't always fire and brimstone. Sometimes it's clarity. It's holding up a mirror so bright they can't look away. So yeah, I've got a plan. I started with the program archive. See, my university records all doctoral ceremonies and keeps them posted publicly for at least a year. The video was there, crisp HD, perfect audio, everything. It even had that moment where the announcer read my name, paused dramatically, and added, "Notably overcame major depressive disorder and early life trauma, first-generation graduate." That moment, that sentence, the one they refused to clap for. I downloaded it, trimmed the clip, added subtitles. Then I stitched it to a video of me at the podium, hugging Ray, tearing up as my advisor handed me the diploma. Then I added a message. This is the moment my parents didn't show up for. The moment they missed. On purpose. Because the parts they refused to believe were the parts I was most proud to overcome. They told me I was lazy. I wasn't. I was surviving. This is for every kid who had to build themselves from scratch. I posted it to TikTok and Instagram with the caption, "Hey Mom and Dad, this is what you were too embarrassed to clap for." I went to bed with 2 notifications. I woke up with 60,000. It went viral. Viral. Therapists, teachers, students, strangers. People flooded the comments sharing their own stories of being called lazy or dramatic or too emotional. One woman wrote, "I'm 47, and my mother still thinks my bipolar disorder is just me being difficult. Thank you for putting words to my grief." Someone else said, "I showed this to my 15-year-old daughter. She cried. She said she finally felt seen. But it wasn't just love I got. My brother Ryan texted me for the first time in almost a year. What the hell are you doing? Mom hasn't stopped crying. You're making us look insane. I left him on red. Because they did that all by themselves. The best part? My old church pastor, yes, their church pastor, shared the video on his Facebook with a long post about the silent suffering of mental health survivors and how we as a faith community need to do better. The comments? A field of fire. My mom deleted her account the next day, but the crowning moment? I got an email from a woman named Judith. She was my mom's old friend from dental hygienist school. I hadn't seen her since I was maybe 8. She wrote, "Danny, I saw your video. I remember your mom saying once you were lazy like all Gen Z. She said you'd never finish anything. I'm sorry. I should have spoken up. Just know some of us are so damn proud of you." I read it 5 times. Then I sent one final text to my parents. Don't worry about being embarrassed. The only people who believed your version of me were the ones who didn't know me. Now they do. I don't know what they'll do next, but I know what I'm going to do. Keep walking. Keep building. Keep speaking. They didn't take it quietly. You'd think after being dragged by thousands of strangers online, they'd retreat, lick their wounds, maybe sit with some uncomfortable truths. Nope. They went nuclear. It started with a voicemail. My dad's voice, tight and seething. You think you're better than us now? Because you got some paper from some liberal school? We fed you. We clothed you. And this is how you thank us? Then came the group texts. Not just to me, to every relative they could find. My aunts, my grandma, even my childhood babysitter Marcia, who hasn't spoken to us since 2004. My mom wrote, "We've always loved Danny. We don't know what made her turn against us. It's heartbreaking. We tried to support her, but she's rewriting history for clout." Then she posted photos, childhood ones. Me in a Christmas dress, me at my 8th birthday party holding a Barbie dream house with a smile that, I swear to God, I now recognize as hollow even back then. Caption, "Remember the sweet girl we raised? We don't know this angry version of her. Angry. Not honest, not hurt, angry." Ray was the one who finally said it out loud. They're not trying to reach you. They're trying to erase you. She was right. I was a character now. A disobedient daughter who went off to the big city and got poisoned by liberal ideals, who turned on her family for views, who forgot who paid for her shoes growing up. So I did the one thing I knew would unnerve them more than any public post or viral clip. I sent them a letter, real, printed, in an envelope, handwritten, and I made it simple. You're right, I'm angry. I'm angry you ignored my pain. I'm angry you called me lazy when I was drowning. I'm angry you didn't show up for the biggest day of my life because your pride meant more than my healing. You're angry I spoke up. I'm not sorry, and I don't want reconciliation. I want distance. I want peace. I want you out of my story unless you're willing to read the whole damn book. I included a copy of the program from my ceremony, the one with my full bio, and I underlined the line, "Overcame major depressive disorder and early life trauma." Then I blocked their numbers, every single one. And just when I thought that was the end of it, silence finally, something arrived at my door. A package, unmarked, no return address. Inside, a framed photo of my childhood bedroom. Empty, just the bed, the posters, a dusty shelf, and a note taped to the glass. "You erased us, so we erased you." Ray found me sitting on the couch with the frame in my lap, frozen. "I guess that's it," I said. "No," she replied. "That's them telling you they lost. Update 2. All right." Deep breath. So, after the photo, after the note, after the final petty, poetic little attempt to control the narrative, something strange happened. Nothing. No more texts, no calls, no cryptic posts. The noise stopped. And in that silence, something settled inside me, like the dust finally choosing to land. I kept expecting another ambush, a distant cousin reaching out, some twisted Facebook message, maybe a last-ditch guilt trip from Ryan, but nothing came. And I realized I'd won. Not in some gladiator, gotcha, internet dunking kind of way. Not in the viral stats or the applause. I mean in the way that actually matters. Peace. Because you can't argue with someone who stops performing, who walks off the stage and says, "You don't get a ticket to this show anymore." So I made it official. I changed my last name. Not to Ray's, though she joked she'd let me borrow it on weekends. Not to anything flashy. Just something new. Something I picked. A name with no baggage, no kitchen chair therapy sessions behind it, no cold dinners, no invisible scars. Just mine. And when I walked into my new office, yep, I accepted a full-time research and clinical role at a trauma center, my new ID badge had my name on it. The one I earned, not inherited. I posted a final video, just me. No filters, no music, no hashtags. Holding the new badge and saying, "This name didn't come from the people who raised me. It came from the person I raised myself into being." And yeah, people cried again, messaged again, told me their own stories about reclaiming identity and setting boundaries and choosing peace over pretending. One DM stuck with me. A teenager, maybe 16, who wrote, "I'm not allowed to go to therapy. My mom says it's for crazy people, but I showed her your video and said she did it anyway. So I'm gonna try too." That wrecked me, in the best way. Because if all of this, every painful word, every sleepless night, every comment wore and shaky hand, if it gave one kid the courage to believe their pain was real, worthy of healing, then yeah, it was worth it. South, that's where I'm leaving it. I'm not here to fix them, or forgive what hasn't been earned. I'm just here to live, loudly, softly, fully, on my terms. And for anyone out there still stuck in a house full of, "You're just lazy," or "It's not that bad," or "You'll regret this when we're gone," listen to me. You're not broken, you're surviving. And one day, you'll build a life so beautiful, they'll have no place in it unless you build them a seat. I didn't, and I'm doing just fine. Thanks for walking through hell with me, Reddit. I'm closing this chapter with the same hands that wrote it, mine. It took months before I let myself hang anything on the walls. We moved into a bigger apartment, me and Ray. About 2 weeks after I got the job at the trauma center. Fresh paint, big windows, no ghosts. But I kept leaving the walls blank. Ray kept teasing me. "You got a PhD in commitment issues with wall art?" But it wasn't that. I think part of me was still waiting for the other shoe, for some email from my mom begging to be let back in, for a phone call from my dad saying he was dying and I owed him closure, for guilt, for fallout. But it never came. No dramatic return, no Hallmark movie ending, just life. It was weird at first, having space in my head not occupied by resentment, not waking up with that emotional hangover of, what will they be mad at today? I didn't realize how much energy it took to live like that until I stopped. I got promoted in my second month. My director said I had an unmatched rapport with survivors. I wanted to tell her it's because I was one. I've been navigating invisible minefields since I was 12. Ray started teaching trauma-informed yoga to veterans. We hosted dinner parties with mismatched chairs and too much wine. We adopted a rescue dog named Basil, who hates loud noises and only trusts us. I get it. And then, one day, I found the frame again. The one they sent. The photo of my empty childhood room. I'd shoved it into a box and forgotten about it. But there it was, under a stack of old psychology journals I couldn't bring myself to throw away. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't sting anymore. It didn't even feel personal. Just sad. Like a postcard from a place I survived. So I did something impulsive. I took the photo out of the frame, flipped it over, and wrote on the back in thick black Sharpie, "This is where the silence ended." Then I printed a photo of my graduation. Me, at the podium. Ray in the crowd, my name echoing through that room. And I put that in the frame. It hangs in our hallway now, right before the kitchen. I walk past it every day. And every day I remember, that girl, the one in the graduation robe, she was built in pieces, from scraped knees and empty rooms and unanswered cries, and she still made it. My mother sent me one final email last week, just the subject line. "Is it too late?" I didn't open it. Instead, I walked down the hall, past the photo, into my kitchen, where Ray was dancing barefoot to Fleetwood Mac, and Basil was curled under the table. And I said, "Nope, it's just finally quiet. Let me know when you're ready for the final part. It's not a twist, it's not revenge, it's what comes after." The last time I dreamed of my mother, she wasn't screaming. She wasn't gaslighting or crying or folding guilt into a casserole dish. She was just standing in our old kitchen making tea, calm, wordless, her back to me, humming something I couldn't quite place. And I stood there, frozen, not afraid, but empty, like all the weight I used to carry when I saw her had finally been set down. I woke up with tears on my pillow. Not panic, not shame, just grief. Not for the mother I had, for the one I needed. I think that's what no one tells you about cutting off toxic family. That even when you win, even when you reclaim yourself, rebuild, thrive, there's still a scar. Still that ache for a version of them that never existed. A soft place to land, a "you're okay, baby," that never came. But I'm learning to live without it. More than that, to live fully. I spoke at a conference last week. Big crowd, spotlight hot on my face. My topic? Inherited silence. How generational gaslighting shapes trauma responses. I told a room full of clinicians about how emotional neglect can be louder than screaming. How sometimes the wound isn't what was said, but what never was. Afterward, a young woman came up to me, maybe early 20s, and said, "Your talk helped me understand my mom for the first time, but also gave me permission to stop waiting for her to apologize." That hit harder than any viral post ever could, because that's what this was always about. Not vengeance, not exposure, not even validation. It was permission to stop bleeding for people who won't stop stabbing, to stop mistaking obligation for love, to stop folding yourself in half just so someone else feels whole. It was about telling the truth out loud and surviving the echo. Ray and I got married last month. Small ceremony. Just friends, chosen family, some coworkers who brought way too many pastries. No aisle, no first dance, just vows spoken barefoot under a tree in a park we'd picnicked in 100 times before. I didn't invite my parents, but I left an open chair. Not for them, for me, for the girl I used to be. The one who clapped for herself in her head because no one else would. The one who tried so damn hard to be perfect just to earn a scrap of kindness. I looked at that chair when I said my vows, and I meant every word. I choose joy without guilt. I choose softness without apology. I choose peace, especially the kind I had to build myself. After the ceremony, someone asked if I missed having family there. And for the first time in my life, I didn't lie. No, I said. They were never really there to begin with. And I went back to the table, to Ray, to our friends, to our new family, laughing, whole, free.